This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
the committee to elect Becky Mateja Lombardini for Porter County Commissioner.
Hello, my name is Becky Mateja Lombardini, and I'm the Democratic candidate for Commissioner in Porter County, Indiana. I'm a fiscally responsible, hardworking servant leader. Also, a master's degree in public affairs, a Hall of Fame basketball player, and a Rotary Scholar to Australia. And I'm going to invite you to embrace a fresh perspective with me. Please like me on Facebook, come on into our campaign, love to have you, and please consider me and vote either now or on November the 3rd. Thanks and have a great day.
The Bill and Kelly Show is recorded at Studio A at Executive Suite Squared in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Now, here's Bill and Kelly. Hello and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. We're coming to you today from Studio A at Executive Suite Squared. The first time we've done a show here in quite some time, so we're kind of excited. And with us today is Becky Mateja Lombardini, who is the candidate for Porter County Commissioner. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're honored that you can make it and tell us a bit about yourself. Usually we ask our guests to tell us where they're from, where they're born and raised, and where they went to school. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a mouthful. So Becky Mateja Lombardini. So we just decided we're going to go with Becky.
Well, with me, if Kelly were here, she would tell you I butchered the name Smith. So there you go.
Well, this is great practice for me because we actually have on Wednesday morning the Duneland Chamber is going to have us at Hilton Gardens. So we have a couple of different things coming up. If you like my Facebook page, you will see a lot. And any of like Porter County Dems, or Band for Congress, we do a lot of different things, so I'd recommend that people go on and start liking so they can see it themselves.
And your Facebook pages?
Well, I have a personal one, Becky Mateja Lombardini, but the candidate one is Becky for Porter County Commissioner.
And that's for FOR or for?
Yeah, it's FOR,
okay.
But we've been doing the force, but usually it'll start to pop up now because I think a lot of people are searching it, so that's good news. Yesterday we were at, I had a little fundraiser, a sip and spa down in Aberdeen, and I was meeting a lot of people, and I was mentioning to you, so we're trying to make that connect between Becky, Leah, Lauren, and Luke's mom, and Becky, the volunteer, and Becky, the nice girl at the hospital, because I worked for community hospital system, and Becky over, there's so many things that, Coach Becky, and I teach at IUN. So Becky Mateja Lombardini is also the Becky that's running on the ticket because I was just slated. So let me go back into my background and then I'll tell you about how I was got to be on the commissioner spot. I've been in Porter County 20 years, but I'm region raised. I'm from Whiting. I went to high school there. I was an academic all-state basketball player. Oh. Yeah, and I headed out to Montana, but I do want to give a shout out to my parents because growing up in that little town, I learned a lot, and it's from my folks. Perseverance, teamwork, love. They've been together 75 years.
Wow.
They were high school sweethearts.
Wow, that is something.
And they're 90. Yeah.
That is something.
Yes, so I love them dearly. I want to say hi to them. Went out to Montana from there, played basketball, was in a lot of different things, sorority, band. It was another smaller campus, but allowed us to do a lot. Actually worked for Max Baucus, the longest running senator out there. I always seem to help. I'm not always in the forefront, but I'm always helping. Very successful. Ended up being one of the graduating seniors, top 3 graduating seniors, outstanding seniors, what they called us. There were 3 of us out of a class of, I think there was probably a couple thousand. I think there was about 10,000 at the school. Finished up there, biology and communications, came back here, started at IUN on my master's, and then I was selected as a Rotary Scholar to Australia.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking about that, how lovely they are, and reconnecting with Facebook has been really nice. But I think what was important is I've traveled, and not just there, but I've really traveled a lot through probably sports, family. We talked about going to Europe and finding out that I was a little bit of Polish besides the Slovak because the borders are moving.
Welcome to the club. Yeah, I'm a little bit of Polish.
And then we were out there in Australia. I did a year there, came back. I think what really is important to me is meeting people and establishing best practices and making those. I always when I was going and doing that I said, when you meet people, those barriers go away. They become a person instead of just saying, oh, they're over there and this is what they think. And instead you meet them and you're like, you know what, maybe we have to work together. Maybe we have to understand. Maybe we don't do this initiative. So I thought that was really important as I was growing up and formulating ideas in college. And then came back here, finished up at IUN. And then I teach there now, so it's been, I can't believe, 25 years. But I started my career at Ford Motor Company. I was a manager for Johnson & Johnson and their wellness. So I try to incorporate that in my life, and that's what I mentioned at IUN is I try to do that so that I do that myself. From there, community healthcare system. So when Johnson & Johnson, they actually sold that division, they started to go back into their core business, which is healthcare. I went over to the community healthcare system, and your friend and mine, Sue Baxter with Panorama, she helped facilitate this. She's like, I was so impressed with that position. I think I've been in every hospital, senior facility, and then because I coach my kids, all the schools, and then churches, because I do a lot with churches and volunteering. She thought that is a really great quality, and I think that's what Frank from Ran for Congress, he's like, she's from here, she lives in Porter County, she's very involved. Probably get things done. He mentioned that on Facebook. You're the key because you get things done, and pretty knowledgeable. So after that, so I spent about 10 years doing that, and then I think I finally just settled in with the teaching. And then the small business, I actually was a part of a union print shop. Our family had that printing, marketing, business consulting, and then we partnered up. That kind of, because printing kind of is dwindling. We tried to convert over to more social media, but it's a tough thing to do. So we partnered up with a group over in Portage, and now just very lightly involved with them, get some printing done. But as a union, I was part of it, and that's why I have a lot of folks. We said we kind of grew up similarly. Whiting, you were
Gary. I was born and raised in Gary.
Frank Hammond. So we know the folks there. We know what we had to do. We know how we had to work. Steel mills, BP, and then we were fortunate enough. Like my dad, actually, I think was the only one in his family who went to college at Purdue. He was principal or vice principal at Morton. I ended up getting a degree, and then kind of following, teaching with IUN, but a lot of different things. And I think that's probably important too. As this role, and I'm going to come back to that. I was slated, and people are like, "What is that? And what's slated, and what is a commissioner?" And honestly, our world, and we'll talk about that more. What's going on in our world? Unless this is your gig, you probably, okay, we have an election, presidents, governors, but beyond that, it's hard to keep track of, who's running, where, who's your representative. The kids, they're involved in a lot of different things, transitioning out of the schools into the e-learning. So I try with my kids, but I get like 1 minute a day. Like they're walking through, give them some food. I'm like, hey, there's an election coming, early voting's tomorrow. So I was actually slated. I wasn't thinking if there was anything else I needed to mention. I think I got through a lot of that stuff.
So they held a caucus to
They
appoint you
did.
as the candidate for the commissioner?
So so I was teaching, and then the pandemic hit, so our classes really went down. I wasn't feeling that good. I actually have lupus, so I had a flare, and I wasn't doing well. But it was about a year, and then Frank announced he was running for Congress. So, we had been friends in high school, and then we talked again because he was at Abbott. I was with Johnson & Johnson. He was doing more public service. And then when he announced that, I'm like, "What do you need?" And he's like, we're starting from ground zero here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I worked that year. I did a lot of different things. I think what was valuable, because a lot of times they're like, "What do you do well?" and stay in your lanes. But for me, it was like we were all doing different things. But I was kind of behind, and I was like, "Hey, we still need to do this, or we need to do that, or we got to look at that." So I think that was important. So we did that for 7-8 months because we had an extension into June. I go to early vote because I worked that week at the polls, and I was early voting, and I went in and I'm like, "Hey, there's an open seat for commissioner. Why don't we have someone?" Yeah, and being the sports person that I am, it's like going to the game with only 8 players instead of 9. So I mentioned it to a few people, Susie, Bob Durant, Mr. Chittister. They're like, "Well, we have a couple days to slate." And I'm like, "Okay." So we looked Sunday night. They're like, "Did you want to do it?" I'm like, give me a day or two to think about it. And I think there were a lot of good things, the Blue Wave, me helping the ticket. I just think that it helps our party, our system, and ultimately our country, because it should bring out the best in everybody. Right. So it's an option. Right. So yeah, they had a caucus. I signed the paper. I'm not sure if I remember going to the meeting, and they had whatever they needed to do, and then I filled out the paperwork, and then I submitted it, and then I'm on the ballot for November 3rd.
Awesome, awesome. So now you have a chance to understand the workings of Porter County, which is an amazing county. A lot of different areas of the county, blue collar, white collar, and so tell us a bit about that. What makes you think you are a candidate for the commissioner in Porter County, which has you have everything from farmers to the south to steel workers to the north, and then you have like Valparaiso that has a vast, diversified kind of, I would say, people. So what would you think about representing this vast county?
Well, I think it goes back to, I grew up that way, where we grew up. And somebody even mentioned to me, "Oh, you must have this or that or the other." In particular, I think about a minority issue. And I'm like, honestly, I just see people as if they're good or not, or like if they're a good student or not, or if they're a nice person or not. But I was fortunate coming from Whiting, and we were diverse even when I was growing up, and around us. And I traveled in sports and around the world. I've just been very open-minded, respectful, transparent. Those are qualities, whatever you're doing. And I think that's what I'm hearing from folks. I've gotten a lot of calls. I said to Frank, I'm like, "You're going for Congress. I'm just doing commissioner." But there's a lot of concerns out there. But I think I was looking at my card. We put fiscally responsible, hardworking servant leader, and my kids are like, "Oh yeah." Oh yeah.
The coach, the teacher, the mom, which most important is the mom.
And I'm telling you, if you're a good mom, a lot of this stuff can parlay. And people are like, "Well, have you ever been in public office?" I said, "I'm a public servant," but you have skill sets that can definitely transfer over. And I'm like, presidents have never been a president before. But they're like, "Well, they started somewhere." And I'm like, I don't know if they started in public service. They've had a variety of different things, army, business. I don't know. Was George Washington like a councilman or something?
Well, So I'm looking, your master's degree is in public affairs.
Yes.
So, and you teach, what area do you teach in?
Well, I'm in the Department of Education, or actually School of Education, the Health, Physical Therapy, and Recreation Department.
Okay.
But managing for Johnson and Johnson, I always said that I was really good at like streamlining, seeing the big picture, getting people to like work together. I'm a motivator, an influencer. I dig in. I think sometimes I do a lot. They're like, man, like I'm probably getting annoying at times. Like my kids are like, well, she's a little annoying. I'm like, I get it, but we do need to get this done before the sun sets.
Right. And one of the things you're going to be faced with, and we talked before the show about this, is everyone thinks their problem is number one. Everyone is going to come to you, well, this is their problem. So tell us a bit about yourself and how you can listen to those people, yet not put their issue aside, but begin to develop what is the true priority, because you're going to be representing a wide range of people.
So the word you just said, priority, and I know Frank has mentioned that. So how do you prioritize? So what I have been doing is I go to a lot of the, when you live in a community, and I was very involved everywhere I've gone, but I worked and I raised my kids, and then I would coach and volunteer. So I was out there. Was I doing policy? Was I making contract decisions? Specifically, no. Was I letting people know things and helping them? Yes. So prioritizing, went to the budget meeting. There's, I'd say probably 25, 30, 40, maybe 50 in $150 million budget, which I had a tough time seeing because my eyes aren't that great anymore, but it's on the board. So I did get the link from Becky.
So if you become commissioner, you'll have them put the display a lot larger?
Probably. And those are the little things.
I'm just kidding. Yes, you're
important.
right. That's part of the transparency.
Because
if you are sitting in the back, probably it is an emotional issue where a lot of people show up and you're in the back and you can't see that's an issue.
I said in a virtual world, I'm still a real girl and I need a piece of paper because like my phone, I can't even get my phone to turn on sometimes. But I did mention that to Vicki, and I wanted to see, and other people want to see. So we hear the funding is coming from the tourism. Okay, where is it going? Or the what are we doing with the interest money from the sale of the hospital? Okay, well, where is it? How much was it? Where is it going? And for that, for example, keep the taxes lower, run the government, and then we have these philanthropic initiatives. And I'm like, okay, well, let's hear them all. Let's hear all the people and what they're concerned about. See where we need it, see how much we have, and then roll up our sleeves and start making decisions. Is everybody going to be happy? No. Are we going to do something? Probably. Are we going to do enough? Probably not. And I said like my why is really like from the family, and then these other issues that come up. Well, we talked about drugs, domestic violence, the lakeshore, women's rights, minorities, wildlife preserves. So I've been getting a lot of different calls about a lot of different things. So we have to all get together and figure it out, because at the end of the day, no matter who wins or loses, we all live here. So those are some of the things I mentioned that we have to still adhere by.
Yeah. So meeting with your constituents and hearing from them and being able to take that to the council meetings and represent them in effect. And as my dad was in public office as well, and he always used to tell me you can't please everyone all the time. You're always going to end up with someone mad. But you do the best you can. And so your opinion is to get out there, listen to people, listen to what they think is the main issue. But at the end of the day, you were elected to make that decision when it comes time to voting. So.
And I think they, and this is the biggest thing for me, is the trust. There's a lot of different things on everybody's resumes, but I think at the end of the day for me is who I trust. Right. And I'm not even really going, I am out there, but I get a lot of calls, texts, and I'm like, where did that message come in? Yeah. But really what drives me is family, family values, and people, I try to stay, like in the middle and hear that. But I really, Stephen Covey is one of my favorites. Andy Grammer is one of my favorites. I was somewhere, and I have I have the Bible in my house, but they told me they actually have on the wall is Jesus, Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, and they helped raise their kids. And I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. I have to get some of those.
Another thing, Porter County is unique. We were talking before. We both lived in Lake County, which is predominantly Democrat, and Republicans are a big minority. Look, things are changing over there now. Some elected officials have changed. You come over here, and it's just the opposite. Is predominantly Republican, but yet rising of Democrat. So tell us about your ability to work across party lines. How if your constituents are come to, and the council itself, you have Democrats as well as Republicans on the council. So how do you navigate those issues?
We were talking about that earlier too. I see people, good, bad, mean, not, honest, maybe not so much. And like I mentioned in the middle, there's the red and the blue. I'll even take purple, but I was looking at, we have a voter registration file, and we actually have more Democrats than Republicans in our county.
Wow. Wow, things are changing.
Yeah, so it's Democrat, strong, leaning, independents, then left, leaning, and then Republicans. I think the issue with the Democrats is that they are concerned, but they don't feel that their voice counts, so it's getting those people to go and vote.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to see that too.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the days when the Valparaiso City Council was predominantly Republican. There wasn't a Democrat on it. Now look, I think there's 2 or 3. So things are changing.
Another thing that popped up is somebody said to me, how can I be a Democrat and have family-driven values? And I'm like, those aren't mutually exclusive. I think there's, like I was saying, most of us are very similar. It's the very far ends that have issues. But, I love my country. I have flags. I'm very spirited. I go to church. But I am also compassionate. So I understand in certain situations, it can't be just a stamp. You have to look at things individually.
Yeah, and in this day and age where we're being driven apart by a 2-party system, it's kind of, I feel, important to have, look at a person's individual beliefs, their individual, and the core that your family is number one is huge in my eyes. I mean,
because we talked about a lot of issues like crimes and drugs, and just the way people act, and say being a gentleman or a lady, consideration, civility. Yeah. Those are all very important.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, people say Porter County has a lot of problems, which it does. But at the end of the day,
we have a lot of great too, though.
Yeah, I was about to say, at the end of the day, I feel very comfortable. My grandkids, both my daughters, live within a mile of me, and I tell this to our elected officials all the time. I say, you know what? It's a great place to live because I feel they're safe. I feel that I'm safe, and so.
I think something that pops in my mind from my high school coach, Mr. Lobb, who's been tremendous in my life. So many people have been tremendous in my life. He's like, something that sticks out to me. He's like, Becky, we love you on the team, but you help make everybody else better. So that's like my goal. Wherever I go, there's a bell curve of distribution, but I would like that to be very small, good, really, really good, and really, really bad. And I'd like most of us to have, a wonderful quality of life, a good quality of life. So I'm a dreamer. I'm an optimist.
Well, we better start wrapping things up here in just a bit.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to share, maybe give more insights about what you bring to the council or commissioner if you get elected?
Sure. So like most of us right now, I am really concerned about health, the economy, and taking care of our health, economy. There's one more good one in there. My phone is dinging, and so it's distracting me. My kids, they're a constant, like, the school thing, all these things going on. But as a commissioner, fair contracting, good decision making, and then caring for our resources. So a little bit more on those. three bids, locals, planned labor agreements, sound decision making, like if we've got this, any of these monies now, how we're going to disperse it, whether it's tax reduction or government running the government or philanthropic organizations, which there's a lot that have contacted me. And then third, and this is a big one for me because I live right by the dunes. I'm in the dunes, and then the road going in. We, like you said, we have a great quality of life, and we help with that great quality of life. People are going to come in, don't mind visitors, use the road, pay, follow the rules, clean up after yourself, because a lot of that funding is helping the rest of our county.
Right.
So those are really important.
And I know you're emotional about, and so am I, about the amount of erosion that's happening along the lake, and you know what the causes are. And I know, you know, at Portage, their pathway out there is just literally unusable.
I was out there for a function, and and we talked about that when I was at IUN with one of my doctors, it's Dr. Reshkin. So you have to, you know him. So you have to be smart about what you're doing. So, you know, like with anything, you've got to get all the facts, like Pete Viscosi said, get all the facts, get you know, intelligent people together, good-hearted people together, people have been there, come up with a solution, and then get that done. But boy, there's a lot of factors, and we've got Mother Nature, and that she's a big one, and so we're gonna have to like maybe rethink that.
With that Mother Nature, I always look at it this way. You ever see those plats say, if Mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy? That's Mother Nature, I'm telling you right now.
So yeah, we just got to be careful about what we're doing up there and how we're going to fund that. So yeah, for sure.
Oh, this is great. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up.
Well,
this has been great. I
it.
appreciate you and coming on, and I will let you know we appreciate you supporting our show and our mission, and that's absolutely great. And with that, we'll say goodbye for now. Goodbye, everybody.
Vote on now or before November the 3rd.
Night.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
the committee to elect Becky Mateja Lombardini for Porter County Commissioner.
Hello, my name is Becky Mateja Lombardini, and I'm the Democratic candidate for Commissioner in Porter County, Indiana. I'm a fiscally responsible, hardworking servant leader. Also, a master's degree in public affairs, a Hall of Fame basketball player, and a Rotary Scholar to Australia. And I'm going to invite you to embrace a fresh perspective with me. Please like me on Facebook, come on into our campaign, love to have you, and please consider me and vote either now or on November the 3rd. Thanks and have a great day.